For this project, we're going to work on fixing the water issues in this basement. Here's a quick view of what's going on. You can see a lot of the space is just a dirty basement with some water on the floor. Most of the basement is dry, that far side, and there's really only one area that the water's coming in, and it's just one edge. But during times of very heavy rain with a lot of moisture, then there's possibility to get some seepage around the rest of it. This is a relatively common problem, especially for older basements. The walls don't appear to be well sealed, and this area of the country has a high clay content. Any water that gets in, it can't drain very easily, so it stays right up against the walls for a long time. This particular basement, the floor, it's a monolithic floor. It's just a continuous slab all the way across. So there's foundation around the outside to support the walls, but then they poured the slab for the basement all the way across. And you can tell by looking at the bottom block, you can see that full 8-inch block coming up from the floor. So a lot of times that block would be the foundation wall just continuing up from the footer, and then they pour on the inside of that with a little gap for that slab, but this one doesn't. It continues all the way through. So if it did come up to the edge and we had just a continuation, a lot of times the solution has to do with digging a trench around right next to the wall. But in this situation, with that continuous slab all the way across, that's not a great solution. So for this one, what we want to do is put in basically a plastic system that goes around that base and collects the water as it would come in at that floor wall interface. And one thing you can see here is that we've got the remnants of an old system that was in place and somebody tore it out. So you can tell that looking at, getting a little bit closer. You can see this lip here. It's about 1.5 inches out. This goes all the way around that basement wall. That's kind of the remnant from the plastic piece that was in there, and we'll take a look at the new system. It hasn't changed a whole lot since whatever system was pulled out of here. You can also see that about 2 spots per block looks like somebody tried to fill in with some concrete, probably another attempt to stop water from coming in. So there used to be holes, 2 holes in every block, basically to let any water that made its way inside of the wall so that it wouldn't stay in the wall and lead to some of this damage that you see over around in here, and there's lots of places throughout these walls. If the water level fills up, it's going to push against that inside wall, and any paint or anything else that's on it is going to just give way as the water pressure builds up in there. So the idea was, with that original system, you drill holes in the bottom, any water goes to the bottom, and would then be collected in that interior drainage system and routed around the perimeter and to the sump pit. We don't know the reason that it was pulled out, but this is the current state of the system. So our goal is to tear out the remnant of that original system, clean it up, make a good surface for bonding in a new system, re-drill those holes, and start over again so that there won't be any water that does make its way through that wall will be collected and go to that sump pit area. So it's a common project. I'm hoping, or it's a common problem at least, I'm hoping that this video will be useful for anyone else that runs into it. So the first step is going to be breaking out this original system. So that's just plastic, presumably epoxied to the floor. That's what the new system is going to be. So you can either grind that out, or it looks like it's going to be a little easier to chip it out. We've got a little chisel and hammer to just chip that out as we go, and then we'll be re-drilling those holes as well. So I'll shut the video off for now, and we'll turn it back on when we've got that completed and look at it again. I'm going to take a moment to go over the tools we'll be using to clean this up first. A couple things here on the bench. We've got the hammer and chisel. We'll be chipping out all the stuff, the bulk pieces first. And then there's a grinder and a couple different heads that we can use to clean up that surface once the large portions are taken out. A dust mask, safety gloves, glasses, and knee pads. It's going to be a lot of time there on the concrete floor. Once we get everything chipped away, we'll be re-drilling those holes. So it's not a hammer drill, just a high torque, high amperage drill here with a masonry bit on it, so we can drill those small holes out. They don't have to be very big, just have to let the water freely pass out of the block. Again, so we don't have effervescence or paint breakdown further up on the walls. You can see has occurred. And that'll be it for the cleanup portion, and then we'll get on to installation of the new system. All right, we've dried out the basement now. We've actually got the drainage system product here in place, and we've done a couple other steps in between from the last section, so I want to point them out. After we chipped out the remainder of the old system, you can still see just a little bit of a line left over from that. We went through with a grinder that I showed earlier and used that to clean up the area even more, to grind out anything that was loose and left close by. And then after that step, we went all the way around the perimeter and cleaned the whole area. So that took a couple times around of cleaning. This area's brought in a lot of dirt over time as the waters come in, so there was a lot of accumulation, especially in certain areas. So the cleaning step, I think, is one of the most important. We're going to be epoxying to the floor on those areas, and so we don't want to have any loose debris there that's going to compromise that bond. So all of it's cleaned up now. Our next step is to lay out this system, which we've started doing. We've got some of it sitting up as it will be in its final position, and some laying down right next to it. There's a little bit of a tilt. Let's see if I can show this from a side view. We'll get some light on it. There's a little bit of a tilt to this if you can see it from the side. You'll have a small gap on the bottom between the wall and the actual plastic system, and that's okay, so there's no problem there. And you can actually leave a little bit more of a gap if you've got an uneven wall or some other issue. There's not really a need to have it pressed up against the edge. Alright, we've got the whole system epoxied into place now. We basically started at the corners, had those set in place, and then laid out all the other pieces and cut segments to length as needed. So when they were all laid out in place, then we started epoxying them on the bottom. So basically we just put a big big line, big kind of caulk line down on it, a little over 1/2 inch in diameter, and made sure we put a little extra on the end so it would kind of spill out on the end as you put it down into place, and then tried to continue to work so it was always we always had a fresh epoxy edge at the edge of each piece. What I mean by that is So here at a junction, a little bit would spill over on the bottom, kind of going out towards the left if we had just placed the right one. And then we keep working from there and put the next one in place so that we try to get a good seal between the two as well. Now you can see that we haven't sealed between them yet or along the bottom. That's pretty straightforward. The bottom is just basically laying a thick bead of the epoxy all the way along, and then you can smooth it out. I think they recommend just using a wet finger to go along it. Part of it's to smooth it and part of it's to push it back into that joint as much as possible. And then along the vertical seam, you'll put a fair amount of the epoxy again and then strap over these caps. I'll grab one here just so we can see. So you'll epoxy it along that seam, and then while it's still wet, put this cap over the top and it snaps into place. And that kind of holds that whole system. I mean, basically you're just building a little plastic wall and trying to make sure all those seams are well sealed. Over at the sump pit area, the guidance given by the manufacturer of this was just to do a thick kind of double or triple bead path down to the sump pit. It actually already for ours is kind of a divot down, so it doesn't probably need all that much. It's not really an elegant solution, but that should work. Shouldn't have any trouble. So our next step is just to put those caps on and epoxy the bottom, and it'll be all done. Alright, we've got the whole system epoxied in place now. All the edges are covered. Corners have a thick bead that's been pressed in, and we've got all the caps on the seams. So our system is pretty well done. I hope this video was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.
One final note on the amount of labor and economics of this project. I had a quote initially from a company that does this type of work, and their quote was for $6,500 to do the work. I bought the materials from a website. It was fairly difficult to find this, but it's actually just called basementwaterproof.com, and I'll include the website link in the description for this video. But they sell the materials directly, which a lot of times it's difficult to get a hold of these kind of things. They usually only have connections with a network of contractors, but you are able to use this website and go on and buy the materials. Those materials cost, for this size job, they were about $1,000. I think I spent about $1,100 total on those materials. The tools that I showed earlier, another maybe $50 at the most. And so there's a huge savings there. In terms of the number of hours, I would say it was probably under 80. So under a kind of 2 full week period of time. And I would say it was well worth it, plus I have a better feeling and understanding for the system in case there's anything that I need to work on in the future to do any future repairs, and as well as knowing about the general quality of the work. So let me know if there's any questions, and I will send any information your way. Thanks for watching.